Anything you would like to specifically talk about in your platform about post-secondary education?
Sure. Well, first of all, I do think it's very important as government leaders or as people that want to lead the province that we recognize how important it is to connect to the new generation. One of the things that I've been saying to the public and to all the folks that I talk to across the province is that a new generation of leadership, which I think I can provide, has to be real, especially to the younger population. That means we have to be able to connect in a different way with the public. Social media is going to become increasingly important. Facebook, Twitter, our websites, all the opportunities to try and involve input and make sure that we can listen to people as widely and as broadly as we possibly can in government. I think that style of leadership will affect everything that we do in the future, in my view. I think in terms of post-secondary education, as someone that obviously went through the system myself and as someone who believes very, very strongly that in the future jobs are going to increasingly be reliant on post-secondary education, the knowledge economy of the future and even today increasingly relies on a high-quality, high-performing post-secondary system. We got to make sure we continue to push and encourage the investment and excellence in our post-secondary and access in our post-secondary system. I can tell you that one of the great ideas that came out was actually from another leadership candidate, but I want to give her credit. Dr. Stillwell talked about the ability of using government's ability to borrow at a low rate to apply that towards students that are carrying student loans, and I think that is a very, very good suggestion, one that I heartily endorse and support. I think that's one of the great things about a leadership race, is that you can encourage those kind of ideas, and I'm happy to take ideas wherever they come from, and in this case they came from another candidate, but I think it's a good idea.
Great, and on that note, BC currently has the highest rate of interest on post-secondary loans. For example, right now, if I was to be renting a house and with my girlfriend, and both of us paying our student loans back, we're talking about $1,000 for rent. We're getting close to, if I wasn't paying a whole lot on interest, I could almost be getting a mortgage. Yeah. The other provinces across Canada, like Newfoundland, have completely eliminated interest loans. Are you willing to go more than Prime Plus One?
No, not at this point, because I don't think it would be responsible without understanding what the financial impact of that would be. But I really like the idea, the suggestion that we provide the rate in which government can borrow at, which is the best possible rate, and allow that to benefit students that are carrying student loans. When I graduated, my student loan rate was 12%. That was a pretty high rate to carry for somebody that's trying to pay back student loans. I know interest rates today are at historic lows, but I think that if there's a way that we as a government can use our borrowing power and our AAA credit rating we have in BC and apply that to help students and the loan burdens they carry, I think it's a really good idea and I support it.
So a couple of years ago, the provincial grants program was cut in favor of a back-end grants program. So that's
loan forgiveness.
Forgiving people's student loans. But the problem with that right now is that BC has the lowest rate of loan forgiveness in the country. And there's no grants program, where many other provinces have better back-end grants programs, plus they have a full-time grant program in front-end. Would you be willing to start up a front-end grants program at all?
Well, I think I'm certainly willing to have a discussion about whether moving back to that is a better model. But remember, the reason why we moved away from the front-end loaded grant program was because the evidence was showing us that a lot of the students that were taking advantage of the grant program were not ultimately graduating and completing school. And what we wanted to do was make sure we had a system that rewarded people that were completing their education. Because at the end of the day, that is in the public interest. That's in the broad public interest to ensure that dollars are going towards kids that are completing their educations, and then encouraging them at the back end by loan forgiveness to actually complete their education. So if somebody, and I'm certainly willing to have the discussion with folks, if they want to try and make the case for moving back to that system, they're going to have to make sure they can convince me that that's the right way to go forward and that that's going to have the same kind of outcomes that we wanted to achieve when we shifted towards loan forgiveness as opposed to upfront grants.
So now, the case that BC has the lowest back-end grants, would you be willing to increase that at all?
The loan forgiveness side?
The loan forgiveness side.
I'd certainly be willing to have the discussion, but I'm always cautious about financial commitments that we're making, and it's not because I don't think they may not be great ideas, but I think we have to recognize that we're coming out of, thankfully, one of the most difficult economic environments that we faced as a province, certainly in my generation, maybe even the previous generation. And so we do have to be fiscally responsible. But one of the things I've learned in government, I learned it as a health minister, a transportation minister, and every portfolio I've held, is there generally tends to be a fair bit of money in the system, and often you can find opportunities within existing budgets to try and find ways to solve problems and deal with issues without having to go and get new money. So it all comes down, in my view, to making the case for what makes the most sense, what provides the best benefit and the best outcomes for our students in our post-secondary institutions. And I'm certainly open to ideas, and that's part of the listen, learn, and lead theme that I've got in my campaign.
Great, thank you very much.